Hello, my fellow Jamaicans. I want to share with you 10 reasons why we should be very concerned about the WHO's pandemic treaty, which the Jamaican government has seen fit to be a part of. Reason number one, this pandemic treaty will lead to us losing our national and individual sovereignty. And this is very serious. This is the greatest risk at play here. The loss of your personal sovereignty and the loss of our collective sovereignty. Critics agree that the treaty could give the World Health Organization the power to override national health policies during pandemics, reducing the ability of individual countries to make independent decisions. Now, this is very, very serious. In my opinion, the World Health Organization is not trustworthy. It has lost any credibility it may have had based on how it handled the last pandemic. Unfortunately, and this is really serious, unfortunately, those who are in charge of our government are also very corrupt and must not and cannot be trusted. So we have a double whammy here. This world organization is not trustworthy and our own government is not trustworthy. So we, the Jamaican people, are extremely exposed. Yeah. We must protect our individual and our collective sovereignty from both the local and global oligarchies, yeah? Because both of them are trying to take away our freedom. The centralized global authority that the World Health Organization wants to become is another serious matter. This is a body that is trying to become a global dictator, really, and it's following the Chinese Communist Party model, a dictatorship style of governance. Of course, they're going to put a lot of fluffy, nice words around it to make us feel good, like solidarity and equity and equality and all that kind of stuff. But don't be fooled by the nice words. Focus on what is really at play here. The treaty may consolidate too much power in the hands of a non-elected international body, raising concerns about lack of democratic oversight and proper accountability. Their dictatorial communist style was praised and advocated. Yeah, the WHO praised China's approach to dealing with the pandemic, which apparently they caused. They also were a propagator of misinformation. Yes, the very WHO misinformed the world at several turns. Look it up, you'll see. They also have a one-size-fits-all solution. That's number 3. We must not ever allow ourselves to be locked into one solution. We must look for a broad base. The Jamaican government during the last pandemic channeled the Jamaican people, forced the Jamaican people into a single solution advocated by their colonial masters and propagated by the World Health Organization. We, the UIC, stood up against that and say, no, we must be open and transparent, we must be objective, we must be inclusive, we must make sure that Jamaica doesn't get locked into just one solution. Because there were many remedies that could have been used to save lives, but the government refused to promote those alternatives, refused to educate the people about those alternatives, and caused many people to lose their lives. The same thing was done around the world by many, many, many other countries. And not because everybody's doing something doesn't mean it is right. Because everybody's under the same control of a dictatorial force doesn't mean we should accept it as okay. So that was the problem. Alternative solutions such as natural immunity, ivermectin, and homemade remedies were suppressed. Dissenting voices were also silenced as misinformation. They used big tech to suppress the voice. They used big banks to lock off the money of those who are protesting. They used big media to mislead the public. And they used big government to try to ram down our throats one solution that would benefit massive corporate interests. Jamaica fell into this. The very government of the day and the opposition fall lockstep in line with it. And the UIC stood against it. And you need to stand with us to continue to stand for you. They even, at the end of the day, they prevented early treatment. And there were many forms of early treatment. I, for one, got hit by the supposed virus, and I used remedies other than theirs, never took their injection, and used homemade remedies, like steaming and all that kind of stuff, and eating properly and building my immune system to be able to combat whatever they engineered in the atmosphere. So they stopped early treatment. Yeah, they prevented that from being communicated timely to the Jamaican people and caused many persons to lose their lives unnecessarily. They tried to bring in medication mandates. Some people call it vaccine mandates. I don't, because that was not necessarily a vaccine. So they even trick us into calling something that's not a vaccine. They do anything, they'll do anything at all. Anything they can do, they will do it to mislead, misdirect, misguide, and manipulate people. And that was one of them. The treatment could lead to a global, the treaty could lead to a global vaccine requirement or forced medication regimes, raising ethical and medical freedom concerns for individuals who object to certain treatments. This body, WHO, has been subjected to what I call corporate capture. Yeah, that is where Big Pharma, for example, people like Bill Gates and others, use their money to take over an entity that is supposed to be working in the public interest and bend that entity to work in their interest, to give them greater control over us, greater control over our economy, greater control over our health, so that they can become even richer. So the money that they're giving to this entity is peanuts compared to the amount of money they're going to make by getting control over the entity and control over 194 countries around the world. That's their goal. Global domination economically, which reduces the rest of us to economic slaves. So don't trust them. So we had, in my opinion, really, the World Health Organization, because you do need, how do I say this? Nothing is wrong with having a global organization that would facilitate a global response, provided that organization is not subject to corporate capture or any other form of capture. It must be truly transparent, accountable, and it must be truly working in the public's interest, right? So to do that, you want to ensure that such an organization is funded only by government. That's number one. You should not have any private forces getting involved. That's public money. And it should be, a very clear funding formula, and that's it. No other, so nobody has any influence. And you must also ensure that those who are running it are forensically audited and investigated annually to ensure that they're not being bribed or otherwise corrupted. So you have to have a foolproof system that ensures objectivity and transparency and inclusivity to protect the rights and freedoms of the people in the process. This whole treaty thing is smack of nefarious influence. Not just corporate entities masking as NGOs and foundations and government agencies, but critics have argued that organizations like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, pharmaceutical companies, they all heavily fund the World Health Organization and use their influence to then direct it accordingly. Similarly, we saw that China had a tremendous influence, where to the point where the leader of the WHO was actually promoting China's devastating approach to the so-called pandemic as what the rest of the world should follow. Would you have liked to have lived in China during this episode, seeing what they did to their people? This is scary. So we've seen where this whole thing, censorship, economic disruption, buyer surveillance, overreach beyond health, potential for abuse, authoritarian regimes, all kind of issues with this. So here what? The UIC is proposing that Jamaica withdraws from the WHO completely and focus our time and resources on educating and empowering the Jamaican people to fully defend our individual and our collective sovereignty. That's the mission and mandate of the UIC, to protect your sovereignty, to protect our sovereignty, to make sure that Jamaica is truly a free and independent country that can stand on its own 2 feet. That's the UIC.